Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, we have reached the 6th chapter in Riyadus, Saliheen. And the 6th chapter deals with the topic of Taqwa. And it is the practice, the style of the author to mention some ayat at the beginning which relate to the topic, and then he mentions some ayat. So we'll begin with some ayat which relate to taqwa, the quality of taqwa, something we might have heard many a time. The first ayah which he has mentioned is Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih, which translates as O believers, have taqwa of Allah, fear Allah how He is ought to be feared, meaning fulfill the right of taqwa. Now the word taqwa, we generally translate it as the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the beautiful thing about the Arabic language is that each terminology and each word it has root letters, and then these root letters of the word have a meaning. So the linguistic meaning is connected with the term. So in English, for example, you do not have this. So in English, if there is a term for something, you won't break down the word and say this is the root letters of the English word, and this is what is the connection with the terminology. Whereas in Arabic, this is the case. So if there's a word in Arabic, for example, and this is a term for something, there will always be a connection with its root letters. So Arabic is what you class as a Semitic language. Recently, you might have heard the word anti-Semitic quite a lot. And the reason why they say anti-Semitic is because the people who speak a Semitic language, one of the people that speak a Semitic language are the Jews. So Hebrew is a Semitic language, and similarly Arabic is a Semitic language. And a key feature of a Semitic language is that it has a 3 letter system. So in an English dictionary, for example, if you want to look for a word, for the translation of a word, you look for the first letter. But in a Semitic language like Arabic and Hebrew, it's something you have to study, but you'd have to find 3 letters from the word. So there's a 7-letter word, you have to find the 3 root letters, and then in the dictionary you'd have to look for them 3 letters. So if you use an Arabic dictionary, you do not look for the first word, you look for the root letters. So the point being is that the root letters have a connection with the actual term. So taqwa is the term, and the root letters have a certain meaning. Now what is the connection? The root letters of taqwa means utilizing something as protection from something you fear. So you're utilizing, like for example, a shield is utilized to protect yourself from harm. A coat is utilized to protect yourself from cold weather, and anything along them lines. So utilizing something as protection from anything that you want to be cautious of. So in this context, what is the taqwa of the ibad, the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Their taqwa is fearing those things that distance you from Allah. So normally when we say taqwa means fear of Allah, it's like a shortened version. So if you expand on that, it means fearing those things which distance you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the early lessons was the chapter of Tawbah, and those who there will remember that similarly when we looked at the root letters of Tawbah, linguistically it means to return. Obviously, the question arises: what is the connection between the meaning of return and tawbah. So how has tawbah been used with the linguistic meaning of return? So the answer is that because when a person sins and disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he becomes distant from him. But when a person then asks for forgiveness, then he returns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He becomes his friend again. So taqwa is that it's protecting yourself from those things. So it's the fear of doing those things which will distance you from Allah, which is of course not doing what you need to do and sins and so on, because these things will do what? They will move you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously is the objective of the servant of Allah to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an, when he was explaining this ayah, that, all believers fear Allah as he is ought to be feared. He mentions what this means is that this means that you obey Allah and you do not disobey Him. You remember Allah and you do not forget Him, and you are grateful to Allah. So then now we understand why he mentioned this. It's because all these things, obeying Allah, always remembering Him and being grateful to Him, all these things will protect you from gaining the anger of Allah, from being distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the same time, another ayah of the ayah, which it also gives hope to all of us. It gives the command of taqwa, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, have taqwa of Allah, have fear. Now fear of Allah is the shortened version of fear those things that distance you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, as much as you can, to the best of your capability. The deen is very easy. It's the main thing is making an effort. The rest you leave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At least make an effort. A person, he is sinning, it may have led to addiction, for example. Fine, he can't leave this sin, addiction at the moment, but he can at least do what? He can at least ask for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whilst he's recovering or he's getting off his addiction. So that will fall under this ayah. He shouldn't feel despondent. He shouldn't feel that he's not doing anything. So even staying away from sin is also an ibadah, an act of worship. A person shouldn't think that I'm not, for example, doing a good deed, so I'm nothing basic. No. Even if you're not doing, for example, a person might not read salah, Allah will make us all people of the masjid, but he's doing what? He's got his own challenge where he is addicted to something, or something sinful, and he's trying to protect himself from that sin. So he is also an abid, in that he is also in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's also remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise he wouldn't do that. To read now, just to cover 1 2 ahadith. The first hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he mentions that it was said to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, man akramun nas, that who is the most noble of people. The Prophet replied sallallahu alayhi wasallam, qala atqahum, the one who has this quality of taqwa, the one who has the most taqwa from amongst the people, he is the most noble of them. And in other hadith, and to the final hadith, to mention the final hadith, Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an, he mentions that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, he used to say this as a dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wa-tuqa wal-afafa wal-ghina. Oh Allah, I ask you for guidance, wa-tuqa, and taqwa, this quality of taqwa, wal-afafa, and chastity. Meaning, this is saving yourself from those things that are impermissible, and it generally relates to matters which relate to the fulfillment of sexual desires. So generally, afaf is used. So a person, if he keeps himself clean and he makes sure he fulfills in this fulfillment, just like food is a desire, that doesn't mean you eat everything and anything. You eat what is permissible. Similarly, a sexual desire is also like food. A person needs to fulfill desire, and he must do this in the correct form. So this is the quality. If a person does this, this is the quality of al-afaf, the quality of chastity. And this includes fulfilling one's sexual urge in any means that is incorrect. For example, in the other hadith, the Prophet Muhammad the Prophet explains that the sin of zina, which is a person fulfilling his sexual desire outside of wedlock, that is not just this. Zina is not just that. Zina is also zina of the eyes. So if a person looks at something that is impermissible, this is also a form of zina. So it's very important to make this dua every day in salah, is because this is a sin that a lot of people are involved in. If you look into the stats on internet, what is searched on the internet, 30-40% of it is these things, is looking at impermissible things. 35%, what was the internet created for and what is it being used for. So this is very important that we read this dua, we ask for Allah for al-afaf, for chastity, because it includes all these things, i.e. making sure we fulfill our sexual desire in the correct manner. And finally, the last was wal-ghina, and independence from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, being human, being social beings, we do need to ask one another for help. But we do not depend on the creation, rather we solely depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wal-taqwa wal-afaf wal-ghina, beautiful duas we should learn, and duas are a big blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a great scholar called Mawlana Abul Hasan Nadwi, rahimahullah ta'ala. He mentioned that a certain group of people who do not value the ahadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They claim to be Muslims, but they treat the ahadith like historical documents. And then he mentioned that how unfortunate are they that due to this they do not benefit from the beautiful du'as of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And just to end on one story related to this, there was another great scholar called Maulana Manzoor Na'mani rahimahullah. He has a famous hadith collection known as Ma'arif al-Hadith. This is a book collection that everybody must have at home, and they should read it as a family, because it covers all aspects which Muslim needs throughout his life. So he was somebody who was a da'i, somebody who will explain Islam to non-Muslims. So on one occasion, a couple came from Lucknow to meet him, a 15-hour journey to meet where he was. So when he spoke to them, he said that I apologize, you have come to speak to me about the existence of a creator and God and so on. And he said, I have seen God, but I know more about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam than my own parents. So let me speak to you about the Prophet. So for the next 2 weeks, he would speak about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to this non-Muslim couple, and he will explain the ibadah, the worship of Allah, and he will explain the du'as of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they say that when he used to explain the noble du'as of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the couple will cry. They will cry when they listen to the word, the usage, what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is asking for. And after 2 weeks, they became Muslims. So the Masnoon, the Sunnah du'as have a great importance. So we should, what we've learned here from young age, we've learned what the du'as are. We should also attempt to understand what exactly we are reading. So may Allah give us this ability to bring the Sunnah, the du'as into our life, and after understanding what taqwa really is, Allah grant us this noble quality. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.